start with, I think one of the biggest things about this book, and it used to be called They Ask You Answer by Marcus Sheridan, the same book, slightly different angle. They updated it and changed the name. And I think he's doing what everybody else is doing, which is selling results rather than selling process. So what you want out of your marketing, instead of an asking and answering of questions, instead of a dialogue, it used to be that people wanted conversations. Now they just want endless customers. So he's starting with the premise of what you end up with. And there's a pretty famous story of marketing, that people use, and this is used by a lot of marketing professors. And that is kind of the Home Depot analogy. You go to Home Depot to buy a drill, and you buy a specific drill, you buy a specific bit. There's a whole bunch of things that go into that decision. But the question is not, people don't buy a drill because they want a drill. They buy the drill because they need a hole in something. So for example, John was doing some work in our house, and he needed a particular sized hole in the wall. And so he went to Home Depot and he bought, of course, he's already got a drill, but he needed a drill bit that drilled a hole that was like this big. It was like 2 inches across. People want a particular result. They don't necessarily want to know all of the details about what do I need to buy, how many horsepower should the drill be, how, should the drill bit be titanium or steel, or, all of those things are questions that kind of go into this. But the first question is about, what do you really want? What result do you want out of this? And, in this case, he wanted like a 2-inch hole. Do you remember that, John? I'm putting you on the spot just as you jump in the room, but you needed to buy a drill bit for a particular sized hole. So the reason that you went to Home Depot was not because you wanted a drill, or you wanted a particular drill bit, or you wanted a titanium versus a steel, or whatever. People get so caught up in the process. But the reason you were there is because you wanted to drill a hole in the wall, or you needed a hole in the wall.
That's true.
Right. So that's kind of the analogy, I guess. And, that kind of struck me as probably the reason. And of course, I don't know the real reason that they changed the name of this book, from They Ask You Answer to Endless Customers. But I'm sure it was basically stepping out of themselves and looking at this from the customer's point of view. I don't want an endless list of questions, and I don't want to always be in this constant dialogue. What I really want is customers. And, I want to have them when I want them and how I want them, and all of those things. So the book is the process. The title is the result. And I thought that was kind of an interesting analogy for how that worked. So I guess the first question from this is, what would change in your business if buyers trusted you earlier? I know for us in marketing, a lot of people have had bad experiences with marketing companies. So by the time they get to us, they're pretty suspicious. They may have spent a lot of money on things that didn't work. They maybe have bought Google ads. They've done things that people have told them to do. There's a lot of vendors who tell them they will do SEO for them and then end up kind of doing a bunch of smoke and mirrors and, very fine wires and not really getting them results. So, often people have kind of an idea in their head. Marketing is less than perfectly honest, And so then by the time they talk to us, they have a slightly different opinion. And so then we have a huge trust barrier to get through in the first 1, 3, 5, 7, 10 meetings. I don't know if, I'm sure, Ben, with the DBT, you've got a similar issue, just because there's a huge trust barrier for somebody who's buying a new aircraft or somebody who's considering investing in a new aircraft. And so that's a problem we share, just getting through that trust barrier. So this book is all about building that, and how you go about it and so on. One of the first things we want to look at is questions from buyers. What are some of the questions that people come up with before they're ready to make a purchase from you? Anybody on my team have a an idea of what questions people ask? What are the most common things you run into?
How do I know it's going to work?
How do I know it's going to work? Right. That's a great one.
How much is the cost?
What does it cost? That's a huge one. And every one of our customers at one point or another, every one of our clients at one point or another has asked, should we have our price on our website or should we not? And our answer is almost always, yes, you should have at least a range or at least a calculation or at least it's somewhere between here and here. And these are the things that go into how we set that. Great question. And yeah, that's one that's worth its own chapter. And I think Marcus Sheridan, I mean, every once in a while he'll throw a rant on LinkedIn about I spent half an hour with some vendor and I couldn't figure out how much this product cost, because they wanted me to make an appointment and I didn't want to make an appointment and they wanted me to go here and go there and fill out a thing and da 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 da. People make it way too hard to make a purchase sometimes. I think that's a thing.
Asked if about what kind of ROI can I expect from this, something like that.
Mm, great one. Yeah, exactly. And we may not be able to answer completely without having had several conversations. And ROI is one thing that we never control all of the levers of an ROI. Because I don't know if I've told you this story, but there was one time we worked with a company that we did their website, we did their social media, we did a bunch of other things. And this is way back, probably 8, 10 years ago, where we actually took it on a partial commission. So, we were getting paid, but also part of the deal was we would only get paid if purchases were made. Do you remember this one, John?
Mm-hmm.
You know where I'm going with this?
Mm-hmm.
You want to tell the story?
Nope. Go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, and so we went through this. It was actually a software product for pilots, and basically for every download we would get $1 or some crazy thing, and so forth, and he would get the remainder of the purchase price. So we did their website, we did the social media, we did SEO, we did advertising, we did all kinds of things. And they were getting a ton of traffic to their website. Their socials were off the scale. Their SEO was doing really well, but they weren't selling any of this. And the way that it worked is you had to actually call the company to get a code to put into this, in order to download the product. This was back in the days before instant downloads and things like that. Finally, we decided to try the process ourselves and buy this product, just to see what would happen. And in the process of doing this, we found out that their phone number didn't work. It went to a broken mailbox. So, they weren't getting any calls, and the whole sales process depended on this phone call to get a code to download this software. So, we'd worked for like 6 months for free because, we just, they just couldn't make sales. That was kind of a crazy thing. All right. So trust assets. What are some trust assets that, and Adila, I'm going to throw the ball to you because I've got a little bit of a technical problem here, to lead the next section, if you don't mind.
I guess testimonials are one of the trust assets that we can use because when people see the results live and when they are from the real customers, then obviously they are going to believe us in a much more better way than without testimonials. And I think so. If we are like have working socials, like all of the social media accounts are working, that's also one of the biggest trust asset that we can have. And another thing is that how much personal branding the owner can do. I think that is another trust asset that we can build. So yeah. Well, I has thrown the ball at me, and these are all the things that are coming to my mind right now.
Yeah, they've got what can trust building content help your business almost everywhere?
Yes.
So they're about websites and emails, and yeah, I think emails or personal contact or conversations or I mean,
especially
you're right about
newsletters.
the referrals is big, or I mean, reviews are everywhere now. You
Yes,
can't.
without,
No,
yeah,
but everybody looks for reviews to see if
yes.
someone else had a good experience.
And also how active they are on their social media. And if someone look at the social media of a certain company and they see that there are no latest post, then they think that maybe this company is not working or something like that. Like this idea build a kind of a trust issue for me, especially if I am looking up a company that is selling, maybe let's say shoes, and I see that their posts are not up to date, or they are not posting much, so I would think that maybe they are not active, they are not working, etc. And especially website as well, the how the website looks also kind of build trust for a business.
Yeah. Age is a big thing. You almost always see this established in
Yes,
date. If it's an older business, they like the age thing.
yes.
Knowing you've been around for 20 or 30 or 50 years is a big deal.
I also think word of mouth is also a big trust asset.
Oh,
If
yeah.
people are talking about a certain company, then obviously that company is good because people are talking about it. So word of mouth is another trust asset. What else would be a trust asset?
They get these business registrations. You can register your business
Yeah.
with the Better Business Bureau. I wonder if that's, you don't see that much anymore. Consumer reports is a big deal. If you can get your product reviewed, that's a big deal. I don't know
And
how to
I
list
think
that, but
articles about your company on some
yeah,
big
that's right.
websites
Yeah.
can also be a trust asset.
News, that journalists, news coverage, assuming it's positive.
Yes, because negative
Yeah.
marketing is bad marketing.
Well, they used to say any marketing is good marketing, but
Any marketing is good marketing. Leave you guys alone for a minute and look where you go.
well, I was joking that if you get covered in the press,
Mhm.
sometimes even, although I don't know, I guess now it's people remember the coverage. They remember that you were covered more than they remember what the coverage was.
Mhm.
So it just depends on. I mean, the death of Pan Am was because their logo kept showing up in the news and that crashed plane in Scotland, Ireland. But that's bad. But
Yeah, yeah.
and the first thing airlines try and do is cover the logo if there's an accident. It's in their books. The first thing they try and do is obliterate the logo.
Right. Even if they have to
So
destroy the the plane
so
further.
it doesn't just get. But people, if you only hear something briefly in the news, you get some kind of coverage.
Yeah,
People tend to remember that more positive. They don't remember the coverage, what the person was saying, just that it was there.
yeah.
So, but still, yeah, news
Although,
coverage can be a good thing.
right, there is a an entire field of marketing, that's basically they used to call them spin doctors or public
Yep.
relations folks. And there is a great one in Salt Lake City that works with one of the ski resorts here. They get a lot of bad reviews because it's a hard, hard, hard resort. It's not a resort for kids. It's not a resort, really for beginners or anything like that. It's a Snowbird, is the name of it. And they get a ton of bad reviews because people, there's and people say there's no green runs, there's no blue runs. It's unless you are a black diamond super expert skier, you're not going to have any fun there. So they actually publicize those bad reviews
Right.
to
Yeah.
yeah, to kind of filter the people that go there so they don't end up with beginners. Then everybody ends up having more fun because there's less grandmas and children on the slopes, that are getting in everybody's way. And
Yeah.
people like us go to different resorts, or people like me go to different resorts. John and James go to Snowbird, but the rest of us go somewhere else where it's a little bit more relaxed. So
The
setting.
willingness,
Oh, go ahead.
the willingness to share negatives
Mhm.
when you're building trust in a negotiation or a conversation, the idea of saying, "Hey, I know you've got these concerns," recognizing
Mhm.
the concerns
Mhm.
is probably is a good builder of trust. It's just hard to do on a mass media basis, but it is a builder of trust.
Yeah. And actually, you can do it on a mass media basis in the sense that, you can say, hey, we're not for everybody. We're
Right.
not. If you are this, or this, then we're probably not the aircraft or the marketing firm or the product that you would choose because that's not who we're for. And we want you to have a good experience. So we'd recommend something else. And,
Yeah.
yeah. So I think that's I don't know if you'd
Hmm.
call that a gutsy move. I guess now it's pretty commonplace that people refer people that wouldn't be a good fit or whatever. So,
I don't know how you do it in aviation, but Snowbird,
mhm.
they really took that to heart because even though I used to ski Snowbird a lot, um, there's a couple of runs that I would be rather not go on again. And one, well, Jim and I were going down in some fairly deep powder, and I fell. And when the powder is 20 feet deep and you fall, there's no bottom.
Mhm.
So what you have to do is spread out as you fall so you don't go to the bottom.
Like falling in jello.
And then he can't come back and help me. There's no way. So
Yeah, gravity.
I've got to figure it out, And people in a similar situation like with marketing, they can't deal with that. And you have to somehow get that idea across that if you start flailing, we're here.
Mhm. Yeah, no, that's a good analogy. Yeah, also a good positioning. And I guess that goes into the whole if somebody is the right fit for you, then you'll basically do anything for them. But if they are not the right fit for you, then you need to, as gently as possible, suggest they go somewhere else. And that's, I think, a perfectly legitimate marketing objective is to filter or even to repel people who are not a good fit for you.
Yeah, I mean, current news, Joby aircraft is starting to fly from various ports in New York City to JFK, and they're going to do it for the price of an Uber ride.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, not bad.
They're going to
And,
have
and they do it in 10 minutes instead of 2 hours.
So I wonder how they're going to manage their marketing, so that they don't have every buddy and their dog that would like to take an Uber ride.
They'll let Price do it.
So they'll raise the price. It won't be the price of an Uber ride.
Yes, it will. In fact, I just read the article this morning. I didn't read it all, but
Uh-huh.
the thing is, what they're going to do is that it may be a little pricier to start with, but as we get things rolling, we will compete with Uber and rideshare. So, and then they would say, we fly at 140 miles an hour, so 10 minutes from all of our locations to JFK, and they take 4 people at a time. I mean, I flew their sim, and so I understand how that thing works. It's really a lot of fun. It is.
Mhm.
And that aircraft has got capabilities. It's exactly right for what they're going to do it for.
DBT has a completely different business model and things, but is there
Right.
anything, John, that you saw that would be applicable or anything that we should be trying?
No, but when you guys get your production going, I think it'll be a fairly straightforward sell.
People have to
I
see
don't know. I don't know if you're going to be doing. Well, you may be doing air taxi like these guys, but it'll be further apart, I think. But
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
partner with an operator that would set up a business doing that. That would be super visible though. Man, I mean, if you got some good locations and a good operator that could manage that as taxis, that would be something.
And I think also that once you did this and they got the first aircraft there and saw how it works, they're gonna want more than one.
Of course. I think a good business plan would probably need a bunch of them to
Mm-hmm.
work.
Yeah, we're hoping for fleet sales.
Yeah, exactly.
You need to
Yeah.
watch Joby because I think they're gonna go through what you're going through. Their distance is a lot closer because they're all electric, but it's
Yeah.
similar.
Right. But I think they have a lot of the same customer concerns, as far as this is a weird looking thing. People have
Yeah.
never flown in one before. There are some similarities that I think we could learn from. So we could look at some of the news coverage and see, what are people saying? Hey, I decided to try it because my neighbor decided to, or because it's associated with big brands, or because the business case is so good, or whatever. But I think they're going to have a lot of the same passengers and or buyers are going to have a lot of the same um, questions to answer before we get over that trust barrier. Yeah, so I think in terms of, and I know we didn't put this in the reader's guide, but there is a kind of the big five content types that Marcus Sheridan talks about. Um, And I think, a lot of our customers, one of the things that they ask is, how are you going to continue to make content for us? And in fact, this is something that we talk about in our team a lot. How are we going to continue to make good content for people month after month, that is relevant and current and all of those things and not repetitive? And repetitive is fine to a certain extent, but we have to do something that's
And the answer is with great vigor.
exactly. But the big five, cost and price, we've talked about that a little bit, problems and issues, versus and comparisons, reviews and feedback. We do a lot of that, and best in class or top lists. So cost and price being the first one of those, we have kind of talked about that. How do we list price for people that have a complex pricing model? And part of that is we need to be able to, in some cases, we write an article about how price is determined, what goes into the price of like an aircraft appraisal, for example. Do I have to go there? Are all of the records in one place? How old is the aircraft? How many different uh, maintenance vendors do they have? All of those things that go into how much work is it gonna require to get a complete and current appraisal of this aircraft. So maybe we can't tell people it's going to cost $1,000 to do an aircraft appraisal, but we can say, here are all of the things that affect the price, and it's going to be somewhere between here and here. And then that way people feel a little bit more, we're building that trust, by saying, you're laying it all out on the table, saying this is how we determine your cost and price. Problems and issues, we kind of talked about that a little bit, showing your problems and showing your issues. We once worked with a flight school that had a simulator conk out, and these are, if you've ever seen a 737 simulator, this is a room, basically, that two pilots go into, and the room is on hydraulics, so it moves around. And it's got a screen and it's got an entire cockpit mock-up and everything else, so people are actually flying this thing like a video game, and the room is actually moving and adjusting, tilting and all that stuff. So this is not, something that's easy to fix. And the people that fix them aren't in every city. So it took a while to get somebody to come in and fix that. Meanwhile, they've got students here from China and, a lot of other countries that have taken time off work. They've traveled to the United States. They're staying in a hotel. They're eating through their budget, every single day that they're here waiting for their sim time, and the sim is broken. So what they did, and I think this is actually really smart, is they would do an update, every day. Hey, we've called the vendor, we're scheduled for this day. we're going to do this, we're going to have a barbecue tonight, or whatever and so forth, and we're going to do a town hall and we're going to answer any questions. We're going to provide extra training, whatever they could do to make that still a good use of time for those people that had paid money to be there, So they were transparent about it. They offered additional services. They gave them an extra, maybe hazard training or something like that, extra classroom training on a topic that they could use. You do what you can with what you have. So, I felt so bad for this business owner because she had not a lot of options, to deal with this. Um, but she did a really good job of managing the crisis, getting through it, responding to all of the negative reviews that were happening, because of course people were upset, and getting through it in a good way. And Ben, to your point, I think when an airline has, or any other aviation company has something go on that is not completely positive, it is, I think, they all have a playbook and a war room that goes into effect as soon as something negative happens that they go by. Adila, you have something.
I just wanted to confirm, are you sharing your screen? Because I'm not seeing.
No, we're not sharing the screen. This is just a book club conversation, so we want to get good shorts out of this one. Right. We usually get tiny little heads in the shorts. So since everybody's got the reader's guide and we're just discussing the book, and so on, I think, we can just do heads today. Yeah, so that's problems and issues. Has anybody else seen good examples of somebody handling a problem really well?
Good response. It depends on where you look at some of the better hotel chains,
Mm-hmm.
Marriott, they often have a pretty standard how they're going to deal with things like your room isn't right, or
Mm,
early or late checkout, or things they can do to make up for problems. Often they give you, a meal or something within their control that they can help to offset the
yeah,
problem, leave you with a better impression kind of
yeah.
thing. At least make an effort.
Mm,
Recognize the problem, make an effort to fix it, or make an effort to communicate what they're doing to get the problem resolved.
right.
But yeah, Marriott's a good example. I'm sure you're right. Now that you asked that, there's some of them that are pretty good. Some of the car companies do a pretty good job.
Yeah,
If your car has got a problem, the company will back fixing it. But they often hesitate, and that creates all kinds of havoc.
yeah, that's true.
They don't. You look at the Pinto case study where they just denied it. They just
Yeah,
said, well, the cars aren't blowing up.
right.
They just tried to bury the whole problem. And then it ended up in court. And then, it ended up an anchor to here's a huge business
Mm-hmm.
anchored by a set of really bad decisions.
Yeah. My first car was a Ford Pinto.
Well, there you go. And it didn't blow up.
It didn't blow up. I'm still here. It did
Yeah.
have any number of problems, but that's a whole nother story for another day. But
Yeah.
it is a great way of showing what happens when you ride a problem into the ground. And I think Ford did itself a whole lot of damage with that model.
Yeah. I think when something goes wrong there was an example of, if you look at how Apple deals with problems versus even the other software or hardware companies,
Mhm.
they're very aggressive. They've got Genius bars, they have helplines. When you get on the phone with somebody, they're paid to stick to it until it's solved, not
Yeah,
how many calls can they get in a day. They
right,
change the metrics. The same thing in the stores. No one is paid to sell a computer.
right.
They're paid to inform a customer.
Yeah,
And there's an instant trust in that. They
yeah.
have no upside in selling a computer to you that
Mhm.
you won't like.
Mhm. And they will
And
spend hours fixing your old computer, so
yeah,
it is
they'll
something.
spend a lot, and they launch software. They do a lot of things to help maintain the. It's funny how it backfired. They released software to help preserve batteries and got absolutely blasted in the press over it.
Yeah.
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 I mean, here they are trying to keep you from having to buy a new phone because one of the big drivers of a phone purchase is battery life.
Yeah. Yeah. That's
When
true.
the phone stops lasting a reasonable amount of time, you're forced to buy a new phone.
Hmm.
And their theory was they never wanted to force you to buy a phone. They wanted to convince you that the new features were more valuable and you should buy it because you wanted to, which
Hmm.
is how they get their customer satisfaction numbers.
Hmm.
Um, but it all went south in the media.
Yeah, it did. And yeah, that was, and every company that's been in business for more than a year, has made mistakes and has had problems or, has upset somebody. Um,
They just forgot to communicate. I mean, it's
yeah.
unusual for them, but
Hmm.
they launched the program. They updated the software to preserve the battery, but they should have been talking about it for 3 months.
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
they should have been clear that there's a switch. You can turn it off.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think that's the best thing you can do is give the customer control of the situation. Because I think that's the
Yeah.
most frustrating thing is when they feel like they don't have control. Uh,
So let me ask a question
okay.
because first, I don't know where anybody's politics are and really don't care. I bought an 8-year-old car. Well, actually now it's 8 years old. Electric car, Tesla, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Had 70,000 miles on it. And regardless of all the other stuff, we took it on a drive cross country and went up to Oregon, getting ready to stop for the night. So we decided to get it charged before we hit the hotel, and it wouldn't charge. I said, "Oh shit! Now what?" I mean, I tried all several chargers, and so I said, "Well, let's see what the manual says." I mean, I don't know. I just had the car; it's new. So we got the manual, of course, on the screen right there, and it says "Help Desk." Really? They have a help desk phone number?
For a car, right?
24 hours a day, right? So I called him, and the guy sat there and talked to me through every possible thing that I could check right there. And the last thing he says, "Well, I think I know what's wrong. Do you happen to have," and there's an auxiliary case. I think the new cars all come with it now, but we bought it. And so, can you find an AC plug, a normal plug it into just to see if it will charge? I don't want you to charge it.
Mhm.
I said, okay. So I talked to a business owner, plugged it in, let it sit there for about 3 minutes, and it showed to be charging. So then I disconnected, and the guy never got off the phone. And he's out of the phone for at least an hour with this guy. And he says, okay, you're good. He says, go to your hotel, plug it in the hotel, and I'll schedule you in tomorrow morning at 8 o'clock. You'll be first in line. And so my only apology is that you're going to have to drive 100 miles to get here. But if it charges overnight, you'll have no problem. I said, we'll be there.
Mhm.
I mean, I cross country. I've got 500,000 or 600,000 miles on cars, and I have never been able to get into a dealer of any kind when you just drive in and say, hey, I need some help. And I said, no, yeah, we can get you in about 3 days. Oh, no, it's going to be next week. And Las Vegas is even worse. So these guys, not only did they move everybody's schedule, they took the car in I mean, we were there when they opened the doors, drove in, signed in, got our stuff out of there, and they apologized for not having a loaner because they were
Right.
out, right? Well, now come on, guys. I mean, why do they not advertise all this stuff? Because everybody that's got a Tesla's got the same ability to do it. Everybody.
And the reason they don't advertise this stuff is because you're doing it right now.
I
Think
mean,
that's the core talkable difference, right?
you know, I, I, I bought it just to be out of curiosity and play with the computer.
Mhm.
And now, it's pretty much taken over our primary means of transportation.
Yeah.
But anyway, the fact that they have things that are not advertised, I think is crazy.
Right. And I think that really speaks to the fact that, sometimes your unhappy customers become some of your best customers if you can solve the problem for them. We had this happen with a client that, felt like we were taking too much of their time. You've got all of these workshops and all of these reviews and all of these things that you need to do. And they felt overwhelmed, and they were actually considering, going with a different marketing company that was more hands-on. You just throw your stuff over the wall, they do everything for you and throw it back. And it's just like, you know what? You don't have to review everything. Once we get to a point where you are comfortable with what we do, our intention is to do that in a way that is logical, that follows guidelines and all of those things. And we build that trust with you so that you don't have to spend that time, and you don't have to review every piece of content if you don't want to. So we put together a little explainer, showing we've got the insane mode where you come to every event and you do everything and you collaborate with us on everything. And some clients love that. And some clients that does the best job for. Some clients never want to talk to us, for months at a time because they are so busy with what they're doing because they have seasonal opportunities and other things like that. And then they know we've got it. We're handling it for them. And then those customers that have had problems, I think, become the best because then they will talk about us, just like John talked about Tesla. We had a problem, they solved it, and everything is good, and that's so much more dramatic than just being the air that they breathe that they never noticed because they never had a problem, right? Not that we should go out of our way to make problems, but still, a problem is an opportunity in work clothes, right?
Oh yeah.
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 Yeah. Cool. Well, I know we've departed a lot from the reader's guide. Was there anything that anybody wanted to jump into from that in terms of trust assets? One of the key points I think is, having a smaller CTA. If your call to action is buy our thing or invest with us or whatever, do you have a smaller CTA that's a little bit lower cost and lower risk? Attend a webinar, or learn more in some way that's not going to take a lot of their time, but not going to cause an issue.
Yeah, you want to make that first step an easy step.
Mm-hmm.
Where they were talking about getting people to go to gyms.
Mm-hmm.
And, some of them, they'll say, just get them to show up for 5 minutes for a few days just to build a habit.
Yeah.
It's low cost. They show up, they do one thing and they leave. And
Mm-hmm.
eventually they build a whole routine because, well, they're there anyway.
Yeah.
But once you build the habit, you have an advantage.
Yeah, I think Alex Hormozy, he's a pretty famous gym marketing guy, and he talks about that, how get people in the door to do a 10-minute private session with a coach, their first time or whatever. Because a lot of people, they'll walk in and they'll look around and go, what the heck is all this stuff? And who are all these people who are looking at me while I'm trying to figure out
Right.
how to work the weights and all this stuff? But you give people 10 minutes with a trainer, who will walk them through and talk them through, this is how you push the buttons on the treadmill. This is how you make this work. Here's a good routine for you, based on your schedule and everything else. And that makes people a whole lot more comfortable. And I think any business can learn from that. That's kind of why we started our onboarding. It was kind of formulated after that gym membership experience. You have all of these things to work with, but even if our self-service programs, we try to keep them fairly low cost, but people have to learn how to use them, in order to make it work.
No, onboarding can be a real good, it's a habit builder. It reduces friction. It's a low cost call to action.
Yeah.
Attend the onboarding,
Mm-hmm.
depending on, the onboarding and whether
Right.
it's difficult to do or
Yeah.
time consuming.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, it's,
Some of our
yeah.
service businesses and even the product businesses, I think, if you sell a set of avionics or something like that, I know, Garmin has a really good training program. You buy a Garmin system for
Right.
they're selling you an object, or they're selling you a thing, but it's no good to you unless you are comfortable using it. So, they have to have really good onboarding and really good training materials. Vision and Bar, they have aircraft record services and things like that. If it is not clear how to get results from this really quickly, people are hesitant to make that purchase as well.
That's an interesting point.
So almost every company we work with, I think, could benefit from some kind of onboarding, where people are, either before or after the purchase, where people get to learn more about how to use this, how it's going to work, what results to expect, what problems could happen, and so on.
Yeah, but how would you?
Mm.
I think bank statements they're a trust mechanism. Sorry, go ahead, John.
No,
Yeah.
that's okay. I was just trying to think how you guys would approach. I mean, what would that convert to for an aircraft sale?
Ah.
Well, right now the challenge is investor community.
Of course.
The aircraft sale is a lot of what they do now is they'll give you tracking on your, Boeing, everybody, they'll tell you where your plane is in the process.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's one of the things when you look at something as simple as Apple, when you buy a computer from them, you get an email that they consistently keep you up to date. Where is this computer and when is it going to arrive?
Yeah.
And that does build trust, assuming and when something goes wrong, they tend to disclose it. If there's a problem, you get a notification
Mm-hmm.
that delivery wasn't made or there was a reason they couldn't do it
Yeah.
but I think that with ours, that's what I was just thinking. You got to be able to show this kind of comment of results. So if a lot of what we do is things like investor communications. So you're talking to somebody, and then at some point they start getting reports about how we're spending the money, or how much progress we're making, or what new and wonderful thing has occurred in this development process. Still, it's not a lot of benefit to them until they actually have the product.
Yeah.
And
But
then you can start talking about time savings or cost savings. Or I'm trying to think of where that does. There isn't a lot. Once it's delivered, the person sees the benefits, you hope.
mhm.
But I don't know how much help you get.
Well, yeah.
Once you buy the drill, they don't come back and ask you whether the hole was okay.
Well, for the DBT, for the actual aircraft, the DBT-2LX as an example, you've got a whole set of things, as far as training, as far as maintenance, as far as insurance, and all of those things could be part of the onboarding process. Put a checklist together for them saying, here are all the things that will be needed to make this a successful ownership experience for you. And then if you can touch base with them, how are we doing on the checklist? Can we help you with any of this? And make connections maybe between people that do the insurance, or people that do the maintenance, and that kind of thing. I think that could be a great onboarding. And even before you actually do it, having thought all of that out, I think would make people feel a whole lot more comfortable making the purchase, going, yeah, we don't just disappear and leave you with this albatross. If you've got a problem that makes it so that you can't use it, we will help you solve that problem. Making that commitment and following through with that is something that some of the best companies do these days. And I know it's time and money and everything else, but making your customer successful is huge.
Right.
Yeah.
Investors are trickier, but yeah,
Oh,
I see
yeah.
your point.
Yeah, exactly. Investors, I don't even know how you would go about that other than, I know you already do the quarterly newsletters, and, you're really transparent about where you are and what you're doing, and so on.
So it's off the track, but it
Okay.
just occurred to me, how does that aircraft work? And can you fly it into known icing?
Well, it will be. It'll be certified into known icing when the
Okay, it's
regional
all in.
carrier comes out. Like the The 9-seater will be a known icing aircraft.
Okay.
The smaller 2-place, probably not.
Yeah.
It
Okay.
depends in some sense on how the propulsion we pick.
Mhm.
Some propulsion systems will give us plenty of air and we can heat the leading edges and do some other things, but we haven't done a lot of testing on icing, and that is a concern
Right.
because it's a laminar flow aircraft. If it builds
Yeah.
up ice, it's going to really make a mess out of the airflow.
Yep.
But it's less
So we
likely,
haven't.
yeah, to
We
develop.
think it's less likely. We haven't proved it, but
Mhm.
if it does pick up ice, it could be a real problem. So we got to work all that out.
Yeah.
Icing is definitely something we're going to have to fly either wind tunnel or in flight to determine how it responds.
Yeah. And
I
I
mean,
hope,
there's an answer. We'll
yeah,
fix it. It's not a,
Of course.
but
yeah.
it's leading edge heat or it's body heat or whatever it is it's going to take to keep the ice from picking up. But
Mhm. Exactly. And I'm sure you guys are going to be super transparent about it because that's the way you are. However,
yeah, well, you've got to, yeah,
yeah.
it'll be an interesting test flight.
Okay. Cool. All right. Well, let's go through just, maybe one final point from everybody. Maybe the biggest takeaway from the book or the discussion that you had. And we can kind of go in order of appearance. I think it was Adila, Angel, Ben, John.
Deal is muted. So
Right.
You're muted.
Okay. Yes, so I haven't read the book yet, but the discussion was really helpful because, since we are in this business like marketing and we are dealing with customers and we are helping them selling things. So I think so all of this actually helps us in with our strategy and our content as well, especially things about trustable assets and referrals and everything. And one thing I especially like in these discussions is all the examples that we discuss, because examples make it really easier for us to understand the topic and make it a relatable, like example like the Tesla one that John shared and everything. So yeah, that's the fun part for me, because examples make it all like stories, like the concept is converted into a story so it's easier to understand and use in everyday work that we do. Yeah.
Angel.
Yeah, I also do agree. My takeaway for this discussion was what Paula said, that the one that unhappy customers can actually become your best customers, because I already experienced that. There was a situation back when in my previous company where I solved their problem, and then it builds stronger trust because they've seen how I handled the things and how things go smoothly. So it became we build trust because of the transparency and the consistency that we gave to the client, and they became our premium client because of that situation. So when we openly address problems and provide clear answers, we can reduce the uncertainty and show reliability to our customers, which makes it easier for them to continue working with us and even refer us to others.
Right. It gives them a great story to talk about us. So that's a
Yeah.
wonderful thing. And congratulations on making that work for whoever you were working for. I'm sure they're lucky to have you. So that's great. Ben, any particular points you'd like to highlight from?
yeah, it was good. I mean, the challenge for us right now, it's selling the aircraft is one problem, of course, and building trust to buy that the airplane's safe, that the airplane flies, that you'll be able to service it into the future. We're going to be here to do that. The investor is a bigger challenge. Building that trust is hard to. You're trying to convince somebody that you're going to do something you haven't done, um, and that you'll stick it out until it's successful. And it's hard. That we're doing a lot of thinking on that, but I always come back to the first step in that trust is recognition. It's really hard to even start the conversation if they don't recognize the name. But I think there is, when you think of some, it's funny how some startups don't seem to have a trust problem, and some do. And it's hard to figure out what it is they've done differently, and often it's not even deserved. And that's what it's struggle with. I
Yeah.
guess it's how sure the salesman is. I
Well, and
think
it's
there's a lot to be said for how
yeah,
sure a salesman is.
right. They say, like in poker, do you play the hand or do you play the person across from you? And I think in a lot of cases, it really has to do with that person and the relationships and network that they have. Um, so, a lot of people start with an advantage because they have a celebrity in their pocket, or they have a huge network, or they've done other products where there's they have a network of investors that have it as a track record with them. So it doesn't matter what the product is, they'll go with this guy. But how do you create that if you haven't before? How do you create that the first time? And I think it's the long, slow, hard way, which is, you build the name recognition for the people, thought leadership, and you guys are doing that, I think, in an amazing way, just by connecting with people and commenting on, some of the comments that Michael's been making lately on some of the
Yeah, I see that.
propulsion and things. There was one where somebody is doing a biology versus physics versus technology, a series of posts, and Michael's been commenting on that. And so he's getting known in some of those circles uh, before they know anything else about him. That might be the first time a lot of these people have ever seen his name. So, I think that's moving in the right direction, but that's the long, slow, hard way, because if they've not heard of you before, it's going to take some time, to build up that level of trust, as if you'd done a transaction before 10 years ago or something like that. If you don't have that advantage, yeah.
Hmm,
Yeah,
that's
no, I
interesting.
think, yeah, there's a lot of ways to do it, but I think a lot of the things in this book are really good ones, and they are long and slow, but that's the way you build trust, is long and slow.
Right, right.
John and I dated for 10 years before we got married.
There you go.
Anyway, on that note, John, did you want to wrap this up? Any final stories or points you'd like to make?
Well, I've started a couple of companies long before I knew you.
Mhm.
And I'm thinking about your question, which was, do you play the person or do you play the card? And in my case, it was always the person. I don't, I didn't realize I was doing it the first time, but it got me a 5-year contract with the government. And I was not the prime, I was a subprime contractor, but it worked great.
So how did you do that with the person? How did you build trust with that person?
I didn't go in cold. I had already had, well, my attitude when it comes to contracting is a little different from most people's. And I don't care what anybody else has got to say about it. I do it my way. And
Hmm.
basically, my way is, if we have a success, then you take all the glory. And if we have a failure, it's on me. And people like that, at
Yeah.
least the people that I worked with, and did it again. It's where I met Paula. We did it again out here. That was my attitude in the financial industry. People didn't believe it till I stood up and said, nah, that was my problem. I apologize. It won't happen again. Fixed it and went on. And when they had a success, I just bowed out and let them take it. And once you've done that a few times, they realize it, then they actually in that instance, not that instance, the one previous, they came to me and asked me to start a company to do contracting. I said, oh, okay.
Right. And this is in an environment where people make a hobby of throwing each other under the bus. You know, I mean,
Oh, yeah.
Right.
contractors in the finance industry are not the world's best people. I think we can.
As a matter of fact, the last large project that I did in the finance industry, they asked me to do it expecting me to fail.
Because they couldn't have it blamed on the company, but they
That's
could
right.
blame it on a
Right.
contractor, right?
And
Yeah.
I don't fail. So,
Hiring consultants, sometimes hiring scapegoats.
Yep.
yes. Oh, yeah. And that was exactly what they did. But I mean, in this particular instance, the OCC, was the Office of the Comptroller of Currency for the country, was coming out to decertify this financial institution.
Huh.
And they arrived on a Tuesday morning, and we were back in production 2 hours before they got there.
Ah.
There were a million a million reasons it wouldn't work, but
In fact, the president of the organization, I went in, to do some stuff, and he said, "We're back in production." I said, "No, we can't be." He said, "We're back in production." I said, "Al, we have another hour and a half yet according to the project plan, and we've been right on." He finally convinced me we're in production. I said, "Really?"
Yep.
So they still to this day, there are people that don't understand how I did it.
Yeah.
And what I tell them is I didn't. All I did was, I was up 24 hours a day with 6 hours, every 6 hours had a meeting with the board of directors. I
Yeah,
wrote,
that kind of personal commitment builds trust.
Yeah. And the fact that, nobody had any risk except John. So, everybody could do their job without fearing consequences. They just did their job and it all worked together. So, but anyway, I know we're over time, but I think that was a great conversation, and it was really, really helpful. At least the book, totally recommend it. I think this is one of the best books for companies these days for building trust, which is a huge, huge, huge obstacle for us in marketing, for anybody in aviation. Of course, it's such a high risk industry, and people are so loath to make investments and commitments in this environment. So building trust is worth all the work, and doing it the slow way, which is really what this is, a roadmap to the slow way. The slow way of getting it done. But yeah. So have a great afternoon, everyone, or evening, or whatever it is that you're having. And thank you so much for coming. And I look forward to the next one.
Yep.
All righty. Thank you.
See ya. Ciao.